Welcome to Contemporary Retirement. Contemporary Retirement is a public interest program focused on the retirement community. Every program has segments on legal, financial, and health issues affecting the retirement community. Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a major grant from the Family Heritage Trust Company.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored by Family Heritage Trust Company. The Family Heritage Trust Company is an independent bank chartered trust company established by local professionals to provide fiduciary services including fee-based investment advice, trust services, retirement planning, and tax planning. The Family Heritage Trust Company is committed to client service in our communities. For more information, call the Family Heritage Trust Company at 301-631-5900.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a grant from R. Thomas Murphy & Associates, P.C. R. Thomas Murphy & Associates is one of Franklin County's leading law firms, emphasizing estate, trust, elder law, and medical assistance planning.
Welcome to the Is It Legal feature on Contemporary Retirement. Is It Legal focuses on the legal issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Tom Murphy from the R. Thomas Murphy Law Firm with offices in Waynesboro, Chambersburg, and McConnellsburg. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Good morning.
Tom, you and I serve an unusual role because out in the rural areas, we don't find many geriatric case managers. And so your firm and my firm has been doing elder law for more than 25 years. We're very familiar with the facilities, combined with familiar with the benefits that are available. And many times families come in at the beginning of this process. We're not only looking at documents, we're looking at help them design a care plan.
That's a good point because there are a lot of proactive families out there, and with the internet you can do research and things. But what people find is they become frustrated because there's no centralizing place where they can get answers as to what's available and how to pay for it, and so we do provide a very valuable service in that area.
And there are some publications out there that provides listings and so forth, but what we find is every facility has strengths and weaknesses, and just because a facility is good in one area does not necessarily mean it's good in a different area.
Exactly, and you can't read that online, and so where we have clients in every facility in the area, we can give families a pretty good perspective on the type of care and the level of care and the quality of care.
So as we start working to the family, they come in to see us on legal and financial, which they clearly need to.
Sure.
But they have a family member who's not yet ready to go into the long-term care system. So as we start talking to them about it, we might start talking to them about in-home care. And one of the ironies is there's a perception that in-home care is less expensive and better, and that on whole is not borne out by our experience.
Well, exactly. We have to kind of shed some light on that problem, because not only is it in many cases twice as expensive as a nursing home, you're subject to the whims of the provider, and that can be a problem.
As we talk about that, they say, well, how can it be more expensive than a nursing home? Well, if a person really only needs 5 or 6 hours worth of support per day, then obviously it's not.
Right.
But oftentimes as that person's health deteriorates, you don't know which 5 or 6 or 8 hours per day they're going to need help, and you end up having people there all the time for just in case.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's inevitable that just after the caregiver leaves the day, someone falls, someone gets sick, and now you've got that overnight problem.
And so oftentimes when a person needs extensive care, we're going to talk to the family. It's going to mean you're not going to be able to hire services out, and family members are going to be expected to provide support during those hours that the person does not have a paid caregiver there.
Exactly. It puts a lot of pressures on families, and in many cases they're just not equipped for the challenges.
And then one of the problems that we have here is you have both tax issues and workers' compensation issues. People say, I've defined them as an independent contractor, but if they walk like a duck and quack like a duck, it's a duck.
Yeah, the IRS is way ahead on that, and so you've got to be careful. And if someone gets injured trying to lift your spouse or your parent, now you've got unexpected medical costs that may go on for years.
And your homeowner's policies specifically exclude work-related injuries that are occurring in your house, and your umbrella policy does not cover it. And because the states have designed a system for people with work-related injuries, it's called workers' comp insurance, and that person is an employee, it doesn't matter what you call them, and you will be responsible for their medical expenses if you don't have a workers' comp policy.
Well, that's an excellent point, and that's part of what we talk about when we sit down and craft plans, or at least lay out what's available to families.
Then as we're talking about in-home care, then one of the questions we're obviously going to ask is the family member a veteran?
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, there are benefits out there, but again, you have to pursue those, and we're in the process of massive changes. So, it's important to know that it's there, but you have to do a song and dance to get it.
And so we help our clients understand the times that they have to have been in service. They don't have to be in a combat theater. As long as they were in service during those times, they may be eligible for some VA benefits for in-home care. Because for all practical purposes, Maryland has a program that essentially does not work, and my understanding is Pennsylvania doesn't even have that.
Well, they've got one, but it's limited. And, again, they're requiring a lot of other alternative things, and so it's not your best tool.
So as we sit down with the family, so we're talking finance with them, we're talking about the costs associated with trying to manage the plan. We also point out to them that, that there's essentially no Medicare coverage for any significant in-home services, so they have to be prepared to pay for it privately. And one of the things that's a problem with in-home care plans, you still have to maintain that house and, the food and the utilities and the maintenance and so forth, and people are really quite surprised that it can become very expensive.
Yeah, and so again, it's just a matter of matching up the family's needs and their resources, and trying to make sense of it, and even leading to them to the conclusion whether it's going to work or not.
And oftentimes we encourage families to try it, and they have to try it, because if they don't feel like they gave it the full college try, that maybe they didn't do everything that could be done. But oftentimes it's an exhausting task, and people need to realize it's quite challenging.
Oh, absolutely, and normally we can help marshal the resources and help them see the light one way or the other.
Tom, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on the program.
You're welcome.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
Few things in life are as important as family. Leave your insurance worries to us. Write Gardner. Call or visit our website to learn how we can make insurance simple and more affordable.
Every life that meets its end leaves a heart for love to mend. Sister, brother, family, friends are left to carry on. When the loss seems more than you can bear, it's nice to know that we'll be there at Douglas A. Fiery Funeral Home. We care.
Call Ed Lowe to help put your mind at ease.
Welcome to the special guest feature on Contemporary Retirement. This segment focuses on various issues which are of importance to the retirement community. With me today is Jason Malott, Register of Wills, Washington County. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Good morning. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, Jason, you and I banter this about all the time, but I almost refer to these internet sites, software sites for preparation of wills as the Lawyers Full Employment Act. Now, why would I say that?
Well, folks that pull these forms off the internet, they're just asking for trouble. Spend what needs to be spent to get yourself a good will. Go to a good attorney and have it done right. The wills that you get off the internet, the forms, they may look easy, but once you start striking out terms and circling things that you don't know what they mean, you're going to cause yourself a lot of trouble, or your estate a lot of trouble.
And there's mechanical issues on the execution of the will that people do not understand. And if you don't do it right, you foul up the will.
That's right. And I can tell you almost every day I hear somebody, or I get the question, do I need a notary? And we'll get wills with just a notary on it. Maryland does not require a notary, but that comes on a lot of wills. People think that notary is going to make it official.
And it's not, because Maryland requires 2 witnesses, and it doesn't require a notary. So if you have a notary, and if you have the notary, you just have created the possibility of that will not being honored.
That's exactly right. A lot of folks just don't realize that.
Well, when we look at people's lives, you see they're very conservative, they save money over a lifetime, they pay for their house, they educate their children, and they're very focused on making sure they do everything right. And then they're sitting there at the end of life saying, I'm going to sign a document which, if I were to question them paragraph by paragraph, Do they understand what each of those words mean? They would say no, and yet they're signing that document.
I can assure you most of them will say no because they don't understand it. The family doesn't understand it when we open it up and read it. Well, that's not what I thought it meant, you know, so I'm quite sure the testator doesn't understand.
And you see the questions asked, even on the software packages, that you really still have to understand what the question's actually asking, and many times people have no idea what the question's actually asking.
That's right, and I've seen the form wills where you strike through a certain word to make it a different, you know, choice or circle something, and they do the wrong thing because they think it's going to do something different.
Well, there's another problem with writing on a will anyway, because there's a question as to whether or not that was done prior to the execution of the will or after the execution. If you write on a will after the execution, you've destroyed the will and invalidated it. You can't be writing on it.
That's exactly right, and it will definitely send it to judicial probate, even if it's not thrown out. The court will have to decide if it's accepted or not.
And so you'll see people all the time on a will that they did themselves. They think somehow it's prudent, but their daughter gets married and they scratch that out and change the name on it.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not invalidating the will, but why in the world would we even be having any uncertainty? You don't do that stuff.
Exactly. And, you know, folks don't realize you don't need to change that. That's not necessary. It just, you know, it's in their mind that it's going to make a difference, but it doesn't.
Yeah, because the court's going to identify, you said my children and you named them. It didn't matter that changed from Smith to Jones. We know who that person is. It's no requirement that you change it.
Exactly.
And so we caution people every day that, you know, you'll see other terms in the will. For instance, there's a pair of terms that we know no layperson understands, and that would be the difference between per capita, which you'll see, and also per stirps, which most people have no idea what that means.
Right, and I've heard many attorneys tell me that, you know, they only spent a couple weeks on that in law school, and it took me quite a while to get through that. So, yeah, those type of terms, a lot of Latin, you know, folks are not going to understand it.
And oftentimes when you use per capita in particular, more often than not, is the one where we really end up with some really aberrant results.
Absolutely, yeah. And there again, you know, if you're signing a document that has that terminology in it you don't understand, you shouldn't be signing it.
And yet, you know, they spent their entire lives, you know, being very focused, very conservative, looking at everything they're doing, and then somehow they think, you know, this is a bargain.
Right. And I don't understand how folks, they plan for everything in life, it seems. Your wedding, your grandchildren, their education, your retirement, but we want to go on the, you know, on the fly to do our will. We want to get it formed, and I don't understand that. That's one of the main things you should be investing in.
Well, you know, one of the ironies of this is almost every attorney can figure out how to write a will that's more or less going to be okay.
Right.
And yet when you look at the percentage of problems that you have in the court, it's almost always wills written by lay people.
Absolutely. And we spend more time on that than anything else.
And of course, the last question, always the magic question for the last 40 years, does the Register of Wills write wills?
Absolutely not. I'm not an attorney, and the Attorney General would not like that.
And so the reality is you go to a lawyer, and even lawyers who are not particularly competent in estate plan can write a good will.
That's for sure. And it's the best advice you can follow.
Jason, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on the program.
Thanks, Mike.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
Tranquility at Fredericktown Assisted Living and Memory Care provides a warm, home-like atmosphere that promotes daily life enrichment. At Tranquility, our medical director is a geriatric physician. Our professionals support and understand the various stages associated with Alzheimer's and dementia. We have on-site physical, occupational, and speech therapists, as well as around-the-clock licensed nurses. For more information, give Tranquility at Fredericktown a call today, because everyone deserves great care. Let us do the caregiving so you and your loved one can embrace life again.
Come on, Dad, let's go! We're gonna be late! Hurry!
Just one more bid on HurleyAuctions.com. If you haven't visited HurleyAuctions.com, you don't know what you're missing. Whether you're buying or selling, antique cars, tractors, boats, or real estate, you can do it all at HurleyAuctions.com.
Get to know Dr. Carrie Hesley at Diagnostic Imaging Services.
What I find most rewarding is caring for women through our Women's Imaging Center. We have a caring staff that will ease patients through an ultrasound, bone densitometry, breast biopsy, or mammogram. Our health team is sensitive to emotions involved in women's imaging and understands that every woman is at risk for breast cancer. Providing the community with a center that is so dedicated to breast health and the imaging needs of women is something special.
DIS Women's Imaging Center, providing women with progressive care.
Welcome to Contemporary Health Scene. Contemporary Health Scene focuses on the health issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Paul Sweeney, President of Quality First Insurance Agency. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Good morning, Mike.
You know, everybody thinks that, you know, health insurance, you just sign up and then you don't have to pay any attention after that as long as it's working well. But nothing can be further from the truth in this Part D annual election period.
The annual election period is something that anybody that is on Medicare that has a prescription drug program needs to pay attention to.
And one of the things that we're seeing is the state of Maryland is terminating its prescription drug plan. So a lot of those retirees are going to end up in Part D. I know there's a lot of hand-wringing, a lot of concern and so forth. I think they're going to find it surprisingly a non-event.
It's a very easy process to go through. I know change is always got a negative connotation to it, but it's actually, in my opinion, probably going to be much better.
And one of the things that employees need to be aware of and retirees need to be aware of is basically there's a budgetary amount that they're putting available to subsidize that retirement health plan. And the fact of the matter was, the way the state of Maryland was doing it, they were not getting the benefit of a subsidy that was available to them, which would have resulted in increased premiums to the retirees.
Exactly right. The Medicare prescription drug program is subsidized by the federal government. So in other words, they're paying part of the premium for you. So the premium cost is actually going to be lower than what the state of Maryland had been paying. And this is a trend that's going to happen more and more in the future. It's not going to be limited to just the state of Maryland. Many employers are going to do exactly the same thing.
And there's an economic reason for it, is because when you get that subsidy, it lowers the cost to the employer, to the employee, and to the insurer. Everybody really wants the benefit of that subsidy, and the way the state of Maryland was doing it, they weren't getting the subsidy.
No, they weren't. And again, it's going to be a good situation because you're going to have many, many choices. It's not going to be limited to one plan alone.
When you're in an employer plan, you get the formulary list of that employer plan. That's it. You don't get any choices. So anybody who was out there that was finding themselves with prescriptions that were not covered are going to have the opportunity, as those state of Maryland retirees, to select a plan that may cover that uncovered prescription.
Most people that are interested in having prescription coverage are the ones that are taking drugs on a regular basis or maintenance medications. And many times, if your employer picked a plan, it has one formulary associated with that plan, which means that you have to go by whatever that plan says can be covered. When you look at the Medicare prescription drug plans, you have choices. There's about 20 different plans. Each plan has a different formulary, and in almost every case, you're going to be able to find a plan that covers all your medications.
And that becomes particularly important because I don't understand the medical reasons for it, but some people do not do generics well. Something is in the generic, and so you may have a plan that is prohibitively high copay if you take the name brand, and yet another plan that would have a much lower copay relative to that name brand.
Again, it's options. You have many, many options with the Medicare prescription drug plans. And the coverage gap has gone away. The coverage gap used to be a period of time where the entire cost of a medication was totally on your shoulders. That has been eliminated. It's no longer there.
And so basically it's going to look much more akin to the employer plan anyway. Yes, you'll be paying the premium, but our expectation is, frankly, we've seen this with other major employers, is it will result in a slowing down of the increase of premiums which employers have been requiring.
And again, an employer is looking at trying to curb their costs, whether it's for current employees or whether it's for retirees. When you're a retiree, you don't really have as much say in it as when you are still working for the company. So unfortunately, this is a trend that we're going to see more and more of, and it's actually not a bad situation to be in. It's actually, in many cases, I think it's going to be much better than what you had before.
And so what we have here is we have the beginning of the annual election period. Now, when is that?
It started actually October the 15th, and it will run through December the 7th.
And we tell people you must reevaluate your plan. This means you. because these plans change. It's guaranteed they're going to change. And people say, well, I like my plan. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not, it's going to change, and you better make certain that that change is not adversely affecting you.
The 2018 plans are what are in effect right now. The 2019 plans will start on January 1 of 2019. Everybody that's on a prescription drug plan has received a packet in the mail or either online that explains exactly how the 2019 plan is working.
And I guarantee you, if they sent you 40 pages, not all 40 pages have printed on it no change.
No, they don't. There's 4 parts they're going to change. They're going to change the premium, they're going to change the deductible, they're going to change the formulary, and they could change the tiers.
Paul, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on the program.
Thank you, Mike.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
The Community Foundation, through its scholarship programs and through its strategic grants, has been a positive influence for change.
Last year, change in Frederick County was influenced thanks to nearly 1,800 caring donors. Everyone can help. Your influence is key.
Help us proactively focus on where we need to be investing our energy in the future.
Albright, Crumbacher, Malott, Itel are a full-service firm that provides elder care services, including managing incoming bills, bill payment, depositing checks, balancing bank statements, and preparing, planning, and filing personal tax returns. Put your mind at ease and call us today.
Welcome to Making Sense feature on Contemporary Retirement. This segment focuses on various financial issues which are affecting the retirement community. With me today is Doug Fiery from Douglas Fiery Funeral Home. Welcome to the show, Doug.
Thanks, Mike.
Doug, you know, when we talk about funeral planning, first of all, oftentimes I love this when people begin the conversation, if I die.
Right. we have talked about this often, haven't we? It's going to happen.
It's a lock certainty.
Unfortunately. If we can control that, we'd be great, but not the case.
And so as we deal with this, you know, we're dealing with a transitory society. And, you know, we don't have children oftentimes living in the same community with their parents. We have children who have left the community on the East Coast, West Coast, and foreign countries and so forth. And so this is a stressful environment, and it's difficult to get people together and even try to make these decisions. The recipe for adding stress to a difficult situation.
Absolutely. You know, we've talked about it often about what you said about people being different places around the country. You know, if they can have all this done ahead of time, then they can take their time making flight arrangements and taking care of things at their own work and kind of getting things wrapped up, knowing that everything's taken care of. And most of the time, we can almost take care of everything over the phone, and the other details can happen when they arrive.
And then, of course, we have the situation that we're dealing with the snowbirds and people not realizing you can make this a heck of a lot easier by both coordinating with, you know, your final place, which is oftentimes the place you live most of your life, working with a Florida or some other funeral director down there, that these handoffs happen all the time.
All the time. And I think people aren't aware of that. They think it's a really complicated thing, but if they can contact us right from the get-go, get things organized, then they don't have anything to deal with, for example, in Florida or something like that. They have nothing to do. We'll take care of all those arrangements, flight arrangements, documentation, everything that needs to happen to bring that person back to their hometown.
Now, we've talked time and time again that to go talk with you and to do a plan does not require that you make a payment.
Not at all. In fact, we love to really sit down and talk to people because I think it gives us an opportunity to kind of educate them. Not everybody's the same. Not everybody's situation is the same, so it gives us a chance to talk to them, give them a little knowledge about some things, maybe just even send them home with some information they can sit and ponder, talk about it, think it over, and then maybe call back and make an arrangement another time.
Well, and then there's all kinds of, you know, small stuff that actually can turn into big stuff is, you know, what jewelry goes with the body, you know, how they want to be dressed, what funeral service they want, what music they want, who to officiate, and so forth.
Right. And those are the little details that end up making a really good pre-arrangement. And that's one of the things that we really try to do a lot, is making sure that we're dotting those I's, crossing those T's, and covering every aspect that they need to know about. And that way, everything runs very smoothly at the end.
Now, the smaller the family, or sometimes with no children, the more we do encourage people to make pre-arrangements on the payment, because it's one thing to perhaps have a child have to step up and guarantee a payment, but it's unrealistic to have a distant family member or friend have to do it.
Absolutely. It's very difficult, and you know, I think it's a peace of mind for that person who's actually making the arrangements, and then probably a little more easier for somebody to take control of that, or willing to take control of that funeral, knowing that everything's already been, you know, financed and all the details have been taken care of. It takes the stress off that person as well.
You know, we hear about, I know a couple funeral homes went out in the last 20 years or so, but basically we're not aware of any losses that really occurred there. And there's a number of reasons why there were no losses, even though the funeral home went out of business. Why don't you share with us that?
Sure. A lot of times when people think they make pre-arrangements, they think, oh my gosh, well, if you go out of business, what would happen to the money that I gave you? It's in trust. It's there for the purpose of your funeral. If we were no longer, or any funeral home was no longer business, that could be transferred to any funeral home in the country, and they'd be happy to honor everything that's there. So it's not really a big deal. We've had people who've actually, you know, moved away from town, thought they would be buried here, and then turned around and said, no, we're going to be buried in Florida or something like that. And we can send everything down for there. And plus the trust fund that we've talked about through the state of Maryland.
So you have a security fund to ensure that they get paid.
Right. So it's protected.
And then, of course, you know, occasionally we do use an insurance product for that as well. While I generally don't like that product for other purposes, I am okay with it for funerals.
Right. It's probably the best scenario that we have going right now, and we've all been using that for probably 20, 25 years now. And it's really a good product. It works best in this scenario to fund the funeral. And there are lots of different options with that as well.
So, and it could result in payments being made so that you wouldn't have to have it all up front. Absolutely. In case you were having trouble with cash flow and that sort of thing. And it also addresses the issue, particularly when you have that snowbird situation. It is going to involve excess expense, and that way you have it fully funded, so it's no problem for whoever actually has to execute the plan for you.
Right, and it's just good to have all that down. Again, details of knowing each individual case. You know, if you're in Florida, then yes, they're going to incur some other expenses on getting the person back here. But that's a part of what we do as far as sitting down and talking and discussing that with them.
Doug, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on the program.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you from Contemporary Retirement.
Remember a more carefree time? Leave your insurance worries to us, Wright Gardner. Call or visit our website to learn how we can make insurance simple and more affordable.
These days, it seems like everything's online, and filling out claim forms and receiving and paying bills online isn't always easiest. That's why we at Quality First Insurance encourage you to just give us a call. Let us help.
Hi there, I'm Paul Sweeney with Quality First Insurance, and it's still just this simple. Our offices are open every weekday where you'll be able to call and speak to real, live people.
No detail was missed. I'm so glad that I turned to Quality First Insurance.
I've recommended Quality First Insurance to my friends who've been just as satisfied.
If you're not happy with what you're paying for Medigap, or more importantly, not happy with your service, give us a try. We're locally owned, and we take the time to provide you with the best. We are Quality First Insurance, and our mission is to provide quality products to quality people. Pick up the phone and give us a call today at 800-745-1411.